Hey everyone, today is a quick one as it's part of our Black Label series where we do a quick dive in by sharing a helpful tip, a method, a lesson learned, and or a new system created following a failure that you may find useful and be able to apply to your productions. Today's guest it's me. I'm going to share how I almost botched a huge campaign for FilmCRY, what we learned from it, and what we've implemented since to make sure that it didn't happen again. The role I'll be discussing has a few different names depending on where you work or the size of your production company or the agency you're working with, but the most familiar one we'll use for this lesson is the agency producer.
A garden of pure ideology.
Yeah, just your typical Super Bowl car ad.
Or a hilarious beer ad.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
I think you're the best ever.
Look out. Back up. Where are you?
You're in the bush.
Well, how am I supposed to know? I've never been there.
I don't always drink beer, but when I do...
Wanna play Bobby?
I think we're going to be here a while.
Now, why would we need an agency producer when we are a production company? Well, if you're working directly with the client and not with an agency, then you're going to want someone to still be in this role. There's a reason agencies have the role, so there's a good reason that you will want the role as well. For us, it's the producer who acts as the go-between between the agency or the client and the production company. You have to make sure both sides are getting what they want and need, which can get interesting because there will be times where you might have to fight your own company who pays you, who you're producing for on behalf of the client. This takes a lot of trust and perspective because if you're not careful, you can awkwardly change teams and end up working against your own friends and coworkers during phases of production. However, we established communication techniques and we learned how to push one another without going nuclear and making a mess, mostly because as a team, we understand the importance of this position. So today is a quick lesson and method on how at FilmCRY, we utilize the role of the client or agency producer. Now, to make sure I'm not just giving our interpretation of these roles, I pulled from something somewhat official, so these upcoming descriptions are from a website called theindustryclub.co.uk, which I will have linked in the show notes. So, the agency producer is involved from concept creation all the way through to when a project is on air. They're responsible for creative development, budgeting, negotiating with the production company, the music and artist contracts, post-production, and getting copy to stations. At the shoot itself, the agency producer's main role is to make sure the client is completely happy. As well as the client, the agency producer works closely with all relevant internal contacts, such as creatives, editors, account managers, project managers, and business directors. They have a multitude of relationships to manage, so they don't have time to handle the time-consuming aspects of organizing a shoot, although they do need to understand exactly how the shoot is put together, which leads us to the production company producer, or often called the line producer, who usually gets involved at the budgeting phase and stands down at the editing stage. They are mostly occupied with the shoot and are often attached to the hired production company. So to sum it up, the production company producer works for the agency producer, and agency producer works for the agency's creative director and the client. Put another way, the agency producer holds the budget and the idea, much like the executive producer of a movie. They need someone to execute the idea, and the production company producer fulfills that role. For us at FilmCRY, that means someone in my position often operates in a hybrid role, as many of us have to do in filmmaking. If we're hired by an agency, I'm a production producer, helping our directors and editors to deliver to the agency. But if a client comes directly to us, I'm a hybrid between an agency producer and a production company producer. But instead of focusing on all things production related during the shoot, once we approach pre-production, we hire an outside line producer so that I can step back and operate as an agency producer. So how did we learn to get this right? Well, I upset one of our clients, of course, and I risked one of the company's important relationships. We had a big shoot for a campaign coming up with one of our favorite clients. We had been preparing for this campaign for months because we were giving them what you could call a full house package, and that included all three of our main services: creative development, production, and post-production. I call it a full house package. That kind of means 7 deliverables-ish, ranging from a 2-minute spot, multiple 60-second spots, and a few 30-second spots, maybe even some 15s and 5s, depending on the project and what the client wants. I won't mention this client by name or their field directly, but to fully understand why I made my mistake that led to this lesson, it's worth mentioning that there are some industries that make production significantly more difficult, not because the people are difficult, but because the nature of their work can require a lot more coordinating, and circumstances can sometimes be life-threatening or saving, like in healthcare, government contracting, or oil and energy spots. You have to prepare with solutions for every foreseeable issue far in advance. Now, if you're a producer of any type, this is the scenario where things are both frustrating and exciting, because while you have to coordinate all this, you also get the reward of standing back and pulling it off and seeing it unfold successfully. That cool feeling where you see all these moving parts and people and crew that you brought in from all over the country, great looking footage, happy director, and priority number 1, a happy client. Or that's how you're supposed to feel. Even with setbacks that were outside of our control, we kind of thought we knocked this one out of the park, and in a lot of ways we actually did. However, I'll now give you what you came for. You'll now hear how I botched it. One of FilmCRY's founders, Justin, taught me to always request detailed client feedback after a project. Not just simply ask, do you like the videos? But rather, how was the process and how was your overall experience? Something we would encourage you to do as well. The client got back to us with high praise almost all the way around, from creative development through production and post-production. They seemed to be very happy with everyone. Everyone but me, the acting agency producer. And I'll tell you why. I won't quote their feedback directly, like I said, but they basically said this. In development on previous projects where we've worked together, it felt very collaborative. This time, we felt more like a customer than part of the team. It felt like we were being kept at arm's length from the development team as opposed to before. The other suggestion I would make would be on a production of this size would be to have a dedicated client service person nearby the client at all times. There were many times where if we had a suggestion, there was nobody to tell it to. This was a gut punch, as these things were the furthest from what we intended. When we received their email, I think I was traveling from DC, I just had to pull over. I was so upset because any of my friends who have worked with me before know that I pride myself on my work, and to hear that everything the client had just described was basically all on me. It was a tough pill to swallow because I had done so much to ensure that we succeeded. So first, regarding the client's feedback to our development process, you heard that they felt they were kept at arm's length. This was not our intent, nor is it our MO. So how did I accidentally do this? Well, in my efforts to run a very well-oiled and larger machine, I guess I lost track of that cool artist thing where we create an environment that's comfortable for creativity. I didn't facilitate opportunities for the client and the director to be creative together. Regarding the client's feedback to my performance during the production, we had hired talented and capable people, a line producer, production coordinator, office PAs, all people who would have done whatever was necessary to help us succeed. But I guess I just couldn't stand the idea of not looking busy. I came up as a PA working in production where you're given the impression that if you're seen standing still or doing nothing, then you must not be doing your job. So I think it was either ego or insecurity that made me not want to be seen just standing around. So whenever I thought it was okay or that the client was content and didn't need me nearby, I would sneak off and help somewhere or do something to help the production run more smoothly, somehow being, quote, productive, but ultimately not doing my job. Here's the ironic part. The idea of me removing myself as the production company producer and acting as an agency producer so that this would not happen was my idea. we went into this thing delegating me as the agency producer during the shoot, and week by week stripping me down of my usual responsibilities leading up to production just to free me up so that I could do this one thing, which was kind of nothing. So reading the client's feedback, hearing that they felt we were lacking in the one role that I encouraged and created and facilitated and that only I was there to fulfill, it sucked. In retrospect, I learned that I need to get over myself. And even if it looks like I'm just sitting on my phone or my laptop, or looks like I'm doing nothing at all, but I'm close by so that the client can address any of their needs at any time without feeling like they have to hunt me down or find me or that I'm unavailable, then that's what I need to do. So here's what we implemented since then. If you want to copy our system, here are your tangible takeaways. Once you've won a bid and your production begins, assign someone to be the agency or client producer and make it their primary responsibility above all others to ensure that the client is heard at all times. And we don't mean the old school Mad Men accounts way. You're not there just to suck up and buy them expensive dinners and martinis, but rather you're there to be available at all times to address their concerns in relation to the project. Always be easily accessible. Your client shouldn't have to look far or wait longer than a few minutes to be able to get a hold of you or talk to you about something, especially once pre-production begins. But it's more than just knowing you'll answer any questions if they have them. They need to feel comfortable talking to you, and they shouldn't have to put in any effort to find you, whether that's on set or digitally. Don't worry about how it looks to just be, quote, close by doing nothing. If you and your team have designated you as the client or the agency producer, you're doing your job, which, while you might not think it, or you might think it doesn't look like it, is one of the most important jobs on a commercial shoot. No matter how much you feel like you're giving space for your client to have a voice, do more. Always check in. Ask if it's as collaborative as they want it to be. Ask the client if their voice is being heard. There's a lot of money at stake. A lot of their branding is at stake. No matter how many times you think you've made room for them, give more. It's important to make sure that they feel heard. If they're not telling you to stop asking, then you might not be asking enough. Learn to do what I had to do. Throw your ego and insecurity out the window. Maybe take a few jokes from your friends in G&E if you have to about sitting cozy and warm inside in your clean clothes next to your client while they work out in the cold and the rain, and give your client such a positive production experience that they can't imagine calling anyone else when they're ready for their next commercial or campaign. Be an easily accessible client/agency producer. Hey, bonus tip, take everyone out for dinner when you can in fun spots after shoots, both the crew and the client, if they're willing to join you. It's a great way to build camaraderie during such short and sometimes stressful shoots. If you want to hear more about our workflow and how we navigate communicating on behalf of our clients, just let us know and we will consider doing a follow-up to this episode. Okay, the goal is to keep this quick and keep these black labels under 15 minutes, so FilmCRY, a creative production and post house based in New York City. I'm Cody, and this is Filmmakers and Advertising.